Well, as you can clearly see, the Seneca is hooked up to the strap of shame. Took her out for a run this morning and got not too far from the house, and the engine just locked up completely. Going up a little bit of a hill in third gear, picking up speed, and all of a sudden it was like somebody put the brakes on and hit the gas, didn't go anywhere, and it was slowing down. So I hit the clutch and then I started to freewheel, let the clutch out, bogged back down again. And it would seem that the engine is locked up solid. I had oil in it and checked the coolant. I had coolant in it. So I don't know what happened yet. It may have something to do with that oil light that was on. The weird thing about that is that's been acting up since I put this engine in. But I went ahead and I put a mechanical gauge on it, and it read, 30 pounds or whatever, and it never fluctuated, never dipped down or whatever, but the light would still come on and flicker and do all sorts of weird stuff. So I figured the oil pressure was good and the light was just goofy. Maybe it is, and maybe this is something else, but yeah, she's locked up solid, it would appear. One thing I noticed that was kind of weird, I went to put a bar on the crank bolt to see if I could turn it. There doesn't seem to be a crank bolt in there anywhere. I don't know where that went, or it should have one, I would think. But there's no crank bolt in it, so I'll have to pull the starter and see if I can push the ring gear around to get it to move. But first, I think we'll go ahead and get it in the garage there so I can actually lay down on the ground if I have to and work on it. My tools are all there. And we'll see how I screwed this up, because I'm pretty sure it's my fault somehow. We just got to determine exactly how. Well, I got her in the garage here, as you can see, and pulled the starter out and went ahead and put a bar on it and tried to wiggle it, and that engine just ain't moving. Also crawled below it, pulled the inspection cover off, hoping to see maybe a bolt that come loose and jammed in between the flywheel and the bell housing or something to lock it up. No such luck. Everything looks fine there, and the car still rolls when you put in the clutch or you put it in neutral, so I'm thinking it's not the transmission locked up, because it does disconnect from the engine and it still doesn't move. So next thing I did was pop the valve cover off just to kind of look around, see if there was anything abnormal, make sure all the valves were there, and everything seemed fine. I didn't see any problems. And several hours have gone by since it died, and there's still oil hanging around in there. And it's all clean, so I'm pretty sure it was getting oiled and it wasn't all sludged up. I mean, it looks really clean, and I don't see any silver or crap or anything really. Everything looks good. Kind of adds to the mystery. When it died, it didn't make any funny noises, wasn't knocking, wasn't doing anything weird, just like it locked up. And I don't think I drove it far enough to get it even hot, so I don't think it overheated and seized, because it was 50 something degrees when I left, and I didn't make it 2 miles before it decided to stop working. So I think I'll come back to it tomorrow and maybe see if I can think of something to look at before I pull the motor out, because I don't want to do that if I don't have to. I'd like to figure out why it don't want to turn over. Well, here we are, a little further into it. I've removed the radiator and the fan and all that so I could pull the timing cover off just to see. I was kind of hoping maybe I'd see that chain busted off in there and jammed between the gears or something, jammed up in the case, locking up the engine, but timing chain looks fine to me. One thing I did learn is that the camshaft will move, so that part of it's not locked up, but the crankshaft is completely seized for some reason in there. So that means I will have to pull this engine and see what's going on. I'm kind of leaning towards it's probably junk at this point, but I'm still curious to see exactly what happened. Probably somehow low oil for whatever reason, and that light was actually telling me something, even though the mechanical gauge I put on said it was fine. Yeah, maybe it wasn't. I don't know, that's the way I'm leaning, but I won't really know until I get this thing out of here. So didn't do a whole lot of extra work except pull that timing cover off. I would have had to do all the rest anyway to get the engine out, so no time lost there, but kind of sucks. Have to get another engine, I think. Well, I've got the engine out and I got it on a stand here and rolled it over, started pulling main caps. Everything looked alright there, so I decided to pop a rod bearing out, or rod cap off I should say, and I think we found our problem. I don't know if you can see that very well. Let's see if I can get you in there. Yeah, there you go. You can see that rod stuck right to the crankshaft, that bearing. So I spun at least one rod bearing. I'm thinking, yeah, I can move that one. That one doesn't move. That one moves. That one doesn't move. So I got 1, 2, 3 at least probably rod bearings that have spun. So yeah, we're gonna pull it apart and see what we see here. See how bad it is in there. Get the crankshaft out and check it over. It's kind of weird though. If I was having oiling issues this whole time, you know, a year or two or however long it's been, I can't believe it didn't blow up sooner. But I guess it blew up, so we'll get this thing out of here and see how it looks. Alright, I got the crank out, and it looks like in total we had 3 seized up rod bearings. Luckily though, it doesn't look like it did too much damage. I think they spun a little bit and then stopped, because they're not all wallered out, and the bearings are still froze to the crankshaft here. So if I can save the crankshaft, I'll have to get that that one's actually stuck in there. I'll have to get that off, take a look at the crankshaft. I may be able to get away with saving it, because that aluminum bearing just kind of melted in there and stuck it. I'll grab a light and I'll show you. See the aluminum sticking out of the hole there, and it looks like, yeah, this engine's been rebuilt at some point. I don't know if you can see that, but it says 10 thousandths under Heco en Mexico, so made in Mexico. Very nice. Well, I'll work and see if I can get this off and the bearing off and take a look at the crankshaft. Where they didn't spin, it looks real nice, but guess we won't know until we dig into the ones that got it the worst. Alright, I got the crankshaft on a bench here, and I'm knocking off these seized on bearings. And how I'm doing that is I'm taking my little torch here, just heating up the back of this aluminum bearing enough to get it to separate from the journal, because aluminum expands faster than steel. And once I've got it a little bit hot, I go ahead and take my punch and I'll catch it on that little lip there and then tap it off with a hammer, and it seems to be working pretty good. And the result is the journals have some aluminum bearing kind of stuck to it. Not horrible. Well, some spots are not great, but I think I might be able to get that off of there, and the journal underneath should be hopefully okay enough to put a new bearing in it and send it. I'm hoping. One other thing I noticed is over here on the engine, we've got the oil pump gear here, and it seems to be wearing out like crazy. I don't know why it's doing that, but I think I'm gonna have to, well, I know I'm gonna have to replace the oil pump, but I think I might actually swap out the cam in this thing, because it looks like the gear on the cam is getting worn too, so I don't want to put a new oil pump in and have it do that again. So I think I'll take a look at the other engine I got and see how the cam is, and I may swap the cam out of it into this one along with the lifters, and see if I can clean up the journals on that crankshaft and stuff her back together real cheap, put her back in the car, and maybe it'll work. I don't know. We'll have to find out. As an aside, to end the video, I think I'll tell you what I think I did to screw this up in the first place. I think. It's an idea anyway. And that's this pickup here. It should be about there on this slant 6 so that it can draw oil from the bottom. But either I didn't tighten it down at all or it loosened up, and as I was going down the road, moved around and wiggled into that position, and the oil level sits about here, so it's pulling from the top of the oil, and as you're going along and it's pumping oil into the top of the engine and into the bearings and everything, it may not have been able to fall down fast enough, and the oil level might have dropped below the sump, especially if I was going up a hill or something, and lost oil pressure, and that was the end of the story. It's an idea anyway. It might have been what happened. Not sure. As far as this oil pump gear, that could have played a role. I don't know what happened there, but that wasn't me. But this pickup was, because I put this pickup in and the other oil pan from the other engine so I could put that thing in this car. So just kind of a side note, that might be how I screwed it up. Alright, we're back with the crankshaft out of the Seneca here, and we're going to try to clean up these journals a little bit. We got some bearing material stuck to them, and I went ahead and I cut a little strip of very fine sandpaper just to give it a try here to see if that would take it off, and it does take off the aluminum. It's starting to, but I think the problem I'm going to have is if I wrap this around there and sand it, it's going to also sand the journal, the exposed journal, as well as the aluminum, and by the time I get down and get all that aluminum off there, I'm going to have kind of a crown on the journal, and I don't really want that. So I think we're going to do a little experiment and try to get that aluminum off there chemically. So I got some lye here. We're going to mix up some lye and water into a solution and put it on there and see if that'll eat the aluminum away. I think I'll mix it up and try it on one of these old bearings just to see how well it eats it. And if it eats it good, I'll put it on here, and that should just attack the aluminum and not the steel below, and should get that aluminum off there, because we got some pretty big chunks on the back side here that we need to remove. So I'll go ahead, find some safety glasses and gloves, because lye is kind of nasty stuff. Mix that up, and we'll go for it and see if it works. Alright, I got my lye water mixed up here, and I took a little bit out and I put it on the bearing, one of the old ones, and you can see it's starting to eat away at the aluminum. So I went ahead and I wrapped a rag around there and spooned a little bit of that lye solution on there to kind of hold it on there. Hopefully that'll eat away at the aluminum. I'll try this bearing first and see how it comes out, and then I'll work on the rest, but seems like it'll work. It would be better if it was heated. Well, ideally I'd have a big tank with lye water in it that was heated, and I could just drop the whole crank in there. But short of that, I'm going to try this and see if that'll clean up the little bit of aluminum that's on there and eat it away. Well, it looks like the lye has worked. There was a bunch of big chunks of aluminum on there, and now they're pretty much gone. There's one little chunk there that's kind of stuck, but I think I can go through and probably sand that little one off. No big deal. And it doesn't look like it touched the journal at all, so that's good. I think what I'll do now is I got the other two soaking. I'll let them finish. They just had kind of a smearing of bearing material, so they shouldn't take too long. And then when I'm done, I'll rinse it all off. Probably take some vinegar there and wipe it down just in case I didn't rinse quite all of the lye off of it. And then give it a quick polish on all three of those journals, and then clean out all the passages, oil it down, and should pretty much be ready to slap it in. I got new bearings. I don't have them in yet, obviously, but I have them. Slap those on, slap some new gaskets in it, clean up a few things. Got my new oil pump put in. Looks like it's going to work good. The cam gear I think looks good enough to run, so we're just going to run that. And then, yeah, put it together, slam it back in the car, and back on the road. Of course, that last part, put it back together and slam it in, probably take a while, but yeah, we'll see how far we get. Alright, we're jumping ahead, I guess, a little bit. I got the crankshaft all cleaned off. The lye worked pretty good, got almost all of it. What little bit was left, took a little bit of fine sandpaper, cleaned it up and polished everything. Went ahead and threw it back in, got the new rod bearings in, that's all done. Timing covers on, timing chains on. I went ahead and I put a little bit of blue Loctite on this thing and cranked her into position, so hopefully that won't move. Now all that's left is throw the clean that out and throw the oil pan on, roll it over, get the valve cover gasket on, and it should, for the most part, be ready to go back in the car, and we'll see if it works. Well, I'm pretty sure the engine's all buttoned up and ready to go back in the car. Got the valve cover back on, oil pan and everything are on. I got the flywheel and the pressure plate on, and I managed to actually find my little lineup tool, which was nice. I didn't have to do it by eyeball this time. I think I'll just let it down and kind of level it out, and then we'll see if we can toss it back in the car. Alright, well that took way too long, but I finally got the engine in. I'm pretty sure everything's hooked up. I got a battery in it that, yeah, I got a battery in it. So I think we're going to see if we can fire it up and see if it'll run. Cross your fingers, I guess. Probably crank a while because that carburetor is bone dry from being tipped over. So it'll take a while, which is probably good. Get some oil pressure running. I'll double check, make sure I put oil in it. It's always a good thing. And yeah, we'll see if it goes. Alright, got oil in it. That's good. Let's see if this thing will come to life or not. Well, good news, no oil light. Starter still sounds horrible, but I can live with that. Should have had that on when I fired it up, but that's alright. I spilled a little coolant, that's not leaking. Good, good, good. I don't hear anything too funky. No big
puddles underneath, other than the coolant I spilled. I'm gonna call that a win. Now all I gotta do is fix the brake line I kind of made leak when I was in here screwing around. Bumped into it. Now it's leaking a little bit. Other than that, running pretty good.